What if the greatest civilization in history wasn't built in a day, but its downfall could be a warning for us all? This is the story of Rome, an empire born from myth that grew to rule the known world, only to crumble into dust. Our story begins not with emperors and armies, but with two twin boys, Romulus and Remus, abandoned and raised by a she-wolf. A legend, perhaps, but from this myth rose a city on 7 hills. This was the Roman Republic, a new idea where citizens, not kings, held the power. They were farmers and soldiers driven by duty and a fierce pride. They built roads, aqueducts, and a legal system that would shape the future. The Republic grew. Its legions marched across Italy, then faced their greatest rival, Carthage. The Punic Wars were a struggle for survival, a clash of titans that saw Hannibal cross the Alps with elephants. Rome was pushed to the brink, but it did not break. It emerged victorious, its power now stretching across the Mediterranean. This sea was no longer a barrier. It was a Roman lake. But with great power came great ambition. Generals became warlords, and the Republic's foundations began to crack. Into this chaos stepped one man, Gaius Julius Caesar, a brilliant general, a masterful politician, a man who conquered Gaul and won the hearts of the people. The Senate feared his power. They ordered him to stand down. Instead, he crossed the Rubicon River, uttering the famous words, "The die is cast." Civil war erupted. Caesar triumphed, declaring himself dictator for life. He was a visionary, but to many he was a tyrant. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, he was betrayed, stabbed to death on the floor of the Senate by men he called his friends. They thought they were saving the Republic, but they had only sealed its fate. Caesar's death plunged Rome into another bloody conflict. Out of the ashes rose his adopted son Octavian. After defeating his rivals, Mark Antony and Queen Cleopatra, Octavian took a new name, Augustus. The Republic was dead. The Roman Empire had begun. This was the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. 2 centuries of unprecedented stability and prosperity. Under emperors like Augustus, Trajan, and Marcus Aurelius, the empire reached its zenith. It stretched from the misty shores of Britain to the deserts of Mesopotamia. Over 50 million people lived under its rule. Life in the city of Rome was a marvel. 1 million people packed into its streets. They watched gladiators fight to the death in the Colosseum, worshipped gods in magnificent temples, and enjoyed public baths that were more like social clubs. Engineering marvels like the Pantheon and the aqueducts showcased a level of sophistication the world had never seen. But even the mightiest empires have weaknesses. The constant need for expansion stretched the legions thin. Barbarian tribes pressed against the borders. The economy began to falter, crippled by overspending, inflation, and a reliance on slave labor. Political instability became the new normal. Emperors were assassinated with shocking regularity. The empire was a giant, but it was rotting from within. In a desperate attempt to manage the growing crisis, the Emperor Diocletian did the unthinkable. He split the empire into East and West. It was a practical move, but it was also a sign that the unified Rome of old was gone forever. The Western Empire, with its capital in Rome, bore the brunt of the barbarian invasions. Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns poured across the frontiers. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The city of Rome itself was sacked. The eternal city was no longer eternal. For decades, the Western Empire slowly bled out until 476 AD, when the last Roman emperor, a young boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed. The West had fallen. The Eastern Empire, later known as Byzantium, would survive for another 1,000 years, but the dream of Rome was broken. So why did Rome fall? There's no single answer. It was a perfect storm of military overreach, political corruption, economic decay, and social breakdown. Its leaders grew complacent, its people divided. Does any of this sound familiar? The story of Rome is more than just ancient history. It's a mirror. It shows how power, prosperity, and glory can be lost. It asks us to consider the foundations of our own societies, the challenges we face, and the choices we make. The rise and fall of Rome is a timeless epic, a warning from history that echoes to this day. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey through history compelling, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.